So as we continue the summer report series, today we're going to take a look at the Boston Bruins. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Let's take a look at the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins just went to the Stanley Cup Final, where they did inevitably lose to the St. Louis Blues in 7 games in Boston. A tough, heartbreaking way for the Bruins to lose out on the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup being raised in their building, but not the Bruins with the cup. Chara did not lift the cup in TD Garden this year. But the Bruins still look pretty solid. They didn't lose too many pieces this summer. They still have a couple that have to be re-signed. But nonetheless, I think the Boston Bruins will be okay at this point. Next summer may be a little bit different, but as of right now, the Bruins are okay. So looking at this season, the top line, you got that really good line, the let's be creative line, don't like to shoot much. No, I'm kidding, but I'm kind of serious. Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and David Pastrnak. So definitely one of the best first lines in the NHL. You have Brad Marchand, who's just a pain in the ass to deal with. You have Patrice Bergeron, one of the best centermen, best two-way centermen in the NHL. And you have David Pastrnak, who is one of the best scorers in the NHL at this point, on a really good contract. Mitch Marner, maybe take a note on that. Yeah, for sure, this is one of the lines that got the Bruins to the final, but unfortunately it was one of the lines that kind of costed the Bruins at points in this series. We saw Brad Marchand get off the ice a little bit, on a weird change toward the end of the first period. The Blues would end up scoring that goal there in Game 7 toward the end of the first because of Marchand's mistake. Patrice Bergeron didn't really look like himself there in the Stanley Cup Final. He may be having some hampering injuries. Pastrnak just wasn't there really in the finals. Looking at the second line, you got Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, and Carson Kuhlman. So Kuhlman came in later into the year, and he was a really good piece there for the Boston Bruins. He fits in, and now with the loss of a guy like Marcus Johansson, who left the Bruins during the summer to head to Buffalo, this is a guy that definitely is going to be, counted on this season for the Bruins. Obviously, Jake DeBrusk, a really good scorer, a great young guy. He's making that draft pick worth it, even though guys like Besser, Barzell, and Connor were picked after him. He seems to be one of the glowing picks there from Chiarelli's mishaps with the other picks to this point. Senyshyn really hasn't turned out. So, looking at the third line, you got Danton Heinen, Charlie Coyle, and David Backes. I love this line just because Danton Heinen, Charlie Coyle, and David Backes all play center. So in the event that one of them gets injured or gets taken out of the face-off, there's another guy that can play the middle. So that works there for the Boston Bruins. They're pretty interchangeable. I like Charlie Coyle. I thought he was a great addition when they brought him in last year from the Minnesota Wild. A pretty cheap deal as well. He'll be a pending unrestricted free agent next year. You wonder if he's going to want to come back to the Boston Bruins, considering that is his hometown and the success that he had this past season. Hopefully he could follow that up this year to get a big payday next year. David Backes, he's a tough one because he didn't play in the Stanley Cup Finals there in the finals. He didn't play very much, so hopefully he comes back this year. He's able to heal a little bit, and he's able to get himself going again for another NHL year. I wonder if this is his last year. The Bruins have a couple more years on that contract, but how much more does Backes still have in the tank at this point? It's almost becoming a hindrance for the Bruins. I don't know. And then obviously, like I said, Danton Heinen, a good younger player. He's a good piece there, and the Bruins may need him to jump into the top 6 if Carson Kuhlman doesn't work out. So he could definitely be a flex piece there for Bruce Cassidy to move up and down the lineup. Looking at the fourth line, one of the better fourth lines in the NHL, I have to say. I like Chris Wagner again. He played with the Islanders a couple of years back, signed with the Boston Bruins. Was a really good piece for the Bruins. He plays center. He's playing on the wing. Then you have Sean Kuraly down the middle, one of my favorite Bruins, I have to say. I really like Sean Kuraly, the way he plays. And Britten Richie, who, big power forward player, left the Dallas Stars. He's one that's a little bit wary, on my opinion, but he could work out. Obviously, losing a guy like Noah Cherry over the summer, that's a tough loss for the Boston Bruins, but still, they were able to make things work. I think Brett Ritchie's a downgrade from Achari, but still, they could make this work. Looking at the defensive pairings, this one is really good. You still have Zdeno Chara, who, for better or for worse, he works really well with Charlie McAvoy. And if McAvoy can get his contract signed soon, that would be great. But Charlie McAvoy is a restricted free agent at this point, so once they get him locked up, you'll have him and Big Z on the top pairing once again. You'll have on the second pair Torrey Krug and Brandon Carlo. That worked pretty well last year as well. Carlo has to stay healthy for the Boston Bruins. A piece I wish the Islanders didn't give up for Johnny Boychuk. That hurts me deep inside, but I do like Johnny Boychuk, so it works. But Brandon Carlo is a great player there for the Bruins, and he works well there with Torrey Krug. Krug is a unrestricted free agent next summer, so that's something that the Boston Bruins do have to watch for. And then looking at the bottom pair, you got Connor Clifton and Matt Grzelcyk. I like Matt Grzelcyk's game. He's been there for a while now. I believe his dad worked at the TD Garden for a while, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, Connor Clifton, he kind of came in on the scene, and he did fairly well for the Boston Bruins last year in the playoffs. So hopefully he could follow that up with another great season. And then looking at the goaltending, you got Tuukka Rask, who really led the Boston Bruins into the Stanley Cup Finals, stood on his head, unbelievable save percentage, video game numbers, and Yaroslav Halak, who is again a pending unrestricted free agent next summer. So a couple of really good players here on the Boston Bruins. They made things work last year, just weren't able to win that Game 7. They were one win away from winning the Stanley Cup, and that happens. Not every team can win the Cup, but the Bruins definitely had the toughest offseason to deal with. They just want the season to begin again, because after something like that, you just want to get back into it. But it's definitely tough when you don't get the Stanley Cup. I think Boston's won enough recently, though, so honestly, I was cheering for the St. Louis Blues. But somebody's got to lose in the final. Unfortunately, this year, it was the Boston Bruins. So let me know what you think of the Boston Bruins. Do you think they make the playoffs? I'm a little bit skeptical. Just the way the division has gotten so much better. I do think they make the playoffs. I think they get into the top 3 in their division. But the division is getting tougher. So you wonder, those easy wins against Florida, they're not going to get those. Those easier wins against Buffalo, they're not going to get those. So that division got a lot better this year. And I wonder if that's going to have an impact on the Bruins. They're still a good team. Like I said, I think they make the playoffs. But you got to wonder, health issues, if Backes can stay healthy, if Bergeron can stay healthy. If those guys can't stay healthy, I think there could really be an issue there for the Boston Bruins. And they don't have Marcus Johansson, so that top 6 spot on the right side is wide open. So you wonder what they're going to do with that. And then looking at their salary cap, they have a little over $8 million in salary cap right now, so that's pretty good, especially considering what may be unfolding next summer. They have Charlie Coyle, Torrey Krug, and Jake DeBrusk, as well as Matt Grzelcyk, being available next year. I would assume DeBrusk and Grzelcyk are restricted free agents. Coyle and Krug are unrestricted. I wonder if they keep one of Krug or Coyle. I'd hope they'd keep both. I like both of them there in Boston. But it doesn't always work that way. And it would keep my Bruins Krug jersey up, it would keep it relevant as well, which would be kind of nice. But nonetheless, what do you guys think of the Boston Bruins heading in this year? Obviously, last season was a major disappointment. I wouldn't be surprised if the Boston Bruins went back and won the Stanley Cup this year, but just the vigorous, grueling task of getting to the finals, I just don't know if Boston has enough to get back there. But let's see if they can prove me wrong. I hope they do. I do like the city of Boston. It's pretty close to my home here on Long Island in New York. It's just a little north, 5 or 6 hours north. But nonetheless, a really great hockey city, really great sports town in general. Just seeing the way they were partying and enjoying themselves before the games in the Stanley Cup Finals, the festivities. It was probably a lot of fun. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Thank you for watching us here at Goal Line Hockey, and have a good day.